Over 20 years ago, I was injured on the job, which left me with a severe permanent disability. It forced me to discover my true passion and purpose. It wasn't until I started my direct sales business and later became one of the company's gratitude ambassadors that I realized I am a giver, a humanitarian, a cheerleader, and have a deep desire to inspire others. I had no idea it was possible to have a bigger impact until I launched my podcast to inspire others to live their passion, reclaim their purpose, and be open to so many possibilities. I am your host, Candice Snyder, and this is the Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities podcast. Welcome to the Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities podcast. Today, I'd like to introduce you to my guest, Robyn Locke. Robyn is a transformation facilitator, gifted intuitive who bridges the physical with the non-physical world, international speaker, blogger, and author who has just launched 2 newly published books, Awaken, the Definitive Guide to Transformative Change, and The Greater Purpose, Awaken to Your Reason for Being. Oh my gosh, Robyn, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
You and I have been able to chat a couple times, and we've really gotten to know each other. And I think your ability to connect to a bigger world is amazing, and it's something that needs to be shared with the world. So can we talk about, before we jump into your books and what each one represents and what they're about and where people should start, I think it's important that we talk about this connection you have to the elders, because people who are listening, they might not understand what that is. So maybe you can explain a little bit about who the elders are.
Well, thank you for that opportunity, and thank you for having me here today. So the elders are just amazing. They come from the energy of love, which I didn't know until recently, but I could feel and do feel their love when I'm in their energy. And they are, as I will describe, pure consciousness, infinite awareness. So they have that 360 view. And everything that they share is from a perspective of love. They do it with, I can't tell you the number of times that I've asked the same question and not knowing and not having gone through my notes, not realizing that I've asked the same question over and over again, because sometimes when I get insights, I don't recall asking or getting the answers. And so it's humbling when you've asked maybe for the 30th time the same question, and they don't say, what do you mean asking us again? We've answered this 48,000 times. It's never that. It's always this, as if they've never heard it before, and they give you the answer, and perhaps even a different way at a different depth of understanding. And so it is an amazing thing, and it's my lifeline. It's a lifeline that I want to share with others, because they give you a different perspective to look at life, and then you can see it from a different lens, and it's not quite the crazy life that you might think it is right now.
So when we talk about the elders and we talk about the mindset, what would somebody need to do in order to shift their mindset so that they could have this bigger connection to the world as we know it?
I think the first step is to just recognize that we're in a mind game most of the time, and that the mind is unceasing and relentless, and is the reason most people, when they say they can't meditate because the mind won't shut up, and they haven't quite gotten the knack of how to still the mind. And a lot of people believe that they're supposed to be getting all of this banter all of the time. And so it's the recognition that when you can displace the mind just for a little bit, keep it tethered, but not in control and not in that prominent position of power over the body vessel, then you can allow that stillness to come over you, and you allow a welcoming mental space for something greater, more vast, a deeper understanding to enter in and give you answers to questions that you might have as to your next step or what might be the best path to take moving forward.
So I know for myself, and probably many, many people out there who say, I can't meditate. I can't still my mind. I don't know how to do it. Is there a piece of advice that you could share that could be helpful?
So I have a YouTube channel, and my website is advancedenergetics.org. And so, of course, the YouTube channel is Advanced Energetics, and there's no space between the two words. And in it, there are meditations, and I need to go in and recategorize because I don't think I have the meditations spelled out in the playlist, but I want to create those. So I'll be doing that shortly. But if you go in and you look at putting a search within the channel, still the mind, mind banter, slow the mind, stop the mind, something mental within the search, you'll find the meditations. And there is a process that you can take. And what I would suggest is that you do the meditation prior to you wanting to sit down and actually do a meditation. But it's stilling the mind, and there's a process, and it's with beautiful music, and they take about 10 minutes, I guess, something in that range. And so they're just short, and they allow you to maybe be in that space, and you develop that like you would a muscle. So you take little steps, just little amounts of time that you keep the mental box under control, and then you grow that.
Robyn, that's so helpful. I mean,
Thank you.
I know for myself that just knowing like, okay, I can start working this muscle 10 minutes a day. And if I'm very consistent, then I'll be able to continuously be able to still my mind and get rid of some of that excess chatter that's always going on a daily basis. Oh, I can't wait. Now, you do a lot of different things, and I know you're an author, and you recently, like super recently, just launched these 2 amazing books. And because you and I have talked before, I have asked you what book comes first. And your response was
to read them concurrently.
yes.
Because one book is on self-healing, mm-hmm. and the other book is the definitive book to find your purpose. And what we talk about is not the life purpose, although you do have a life purpose, most likely. It is the actual original purpose that is the bigger, more vast, greater purpose. And so the greater purpose is a compilation of 3 smaller books that have been put together because I felt like if you got them maybe out of order or only read one and didn't know there were others, then you wouldn't have the clear path. So that's the purpose of the greater purpose. And it is a great book. It gives stilling mantras and verses within each of the books so that you'll have additional keys, and they are called energy keys oftentimes, that will allow you to distract the mind or move it out of its position of dominant control. And then the Awaken book is a self-healing book. And the reason for the Awaken book is if you've discovered now these teachings, because realize that oftentimes a lot of things that you read or hear are regurgitated from earlier times. So a lot of what these books are new, cutting edge, transformative steps that haven't been around. And so the Awaken book, if you've discovered that, then you'll want to maintain your body, restore your body. And the objective is so that you can enact your purpose. So they work hand in glove. And since the Awaken book has a lot of steps and exercises and fundamental teachings, it might be good to read that and work on the steps so that you actually enact what is asked or recommended, really. They never ask, they just recommend. And then you can move into the greater purpose, which is a little bit lighter of reading and not so many outline steps that you might take, because what you're doing with Awaken is you're removing negative energy stored in the body, which is the beginnings of disease and illness.
Now, the Awaken book, it should go in. You should go in order, correct? You should not skip, right?
So within the chapters themselves,
Mm-hmm.
the 14th chapter is a reset of your subconscious. And what I always say is, because the elders said it in the book, so I just kind of repeat what they share, but it's recommended that you not try to just jump to chapter 14, because you may not be able to do the reset as readily had you done the earlier steps. So as you work your way through the book, you're releasing, so that when you get to that point in the Awaken book, then you can actually move to reset the subconscious back to universal design.
Okay. Now, let's talk about self-healing. So you mentioned that in the book, it helps you to heal the body of disease or dis-ease, as we like to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you share a little bit more about that and how that actually works? I mean, I know it's probably different for everybody's experience is different, but I mean, in a generalization, is there a way to describe that?
Well, what I'd say is that everything is energy. And so we're here to understand something that we could not understand when we were spiritual in form. And so in order to feel and truly in order to understand, we need to feel the life experience. But oftentimes, if it feels bad, we suppress it, we push it away, we don't want to feel it. We're going through this really bad thing. How can we feel it too? And so what universe says is, well, you came here to feel life, and you want to feel everything, because if you want to feel a certain way, you want to know what the converse energy is. So you know the opposite of it. So you have the full expanse of what something good is really feeling. Because if you didn't know its opposite, you wouldn't know how good you had it.
Right.
And so what universe does is it says, well, you must want to feel this later. So that energy is stored within. And the energy isn't in alignment with other energy in your body. And so it actually works conversely with the other energy, and the other energy wanting that more synchronistic, that more even flow, tries to mimic the new energy that's been introduced. And so over time, if it's left in the body for a period of time, then it changes and it becomes something that you may not want to have within your body. And so isn't it easier to get about releasing something while you're feeling good and you don't feel the effects of the negativity? So often you hear people that did all sorts of sports or did activities early in their youth, that they, as they age, they have to have all these different operations. Well, if you could remove some things, because we've all stored energy that is something that we didn't like maybe feeling. I can think of quite a few things myself. Mm-hmm. And what I know is that when I did the work, which is in chapter 9, the biggest part of it, the biggest chapter to me of doing the work is in chapter 9. Now you've done all the little things leading up to that, and you can do the worksheet and the suggestion of how you can process all of this so that when you get to 14, you literally, I felt like there was a heavy weight that was lifted off my shoulders. Now, I didn't feel the weight before I did the exercise, but once it had occurred and I was able to reset after I had to try twice, that I could feel the difference. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So I know how it's meant to work. And it is a gift in that you'll get greater understandings, I guess, as you go through it, because it's hard to give a deep and in-depth answer to that, because disease and illness is a process that we all go through. But if you can have the means to remove something that isn't necessary, when you can see life from a different vantage, then you can shift a lot of that so you don't have to actually experience it because you recognize it without having the adversity.
I'm just sitting here as you're sharing this, I'm sitting here thinking how many people this could help. I mean, millions of people that deal with from the smallest ailment to something major. It could be such a huge shift for them.
What I'll say though is you've got to believe first and foremost that it can be a shift that you can experience and know. Because I've known people that could absolutely benefit from this, but if they don't mentally understand or align with it, then it's not going to work. It can't force you to do thus and such, and it can't shift you if there isn't the alignment with the belief of what it might offer. So that's the only limitation that I know.
The word that just, came to mind was, being open, like allowing your heart to be open to it, allowing your mind to be open to it. Now, am I correct in saying that, or would you say it's something else?
No, I agree with that. And I would also say that, again, in the YouTube channel, there are 2 different meditations, and they're called Release Beliefs. One is Release Beliefs Sphere, and I think the other one is just a Release Beliefs meditation. One's more current than the other. And they are absolutely something that I would suggest that anyone who is ready to allow different understandings into their lives to go through the process, because what ends up happening is if you're not able to release beliefs, well, if you believe this, then how can you believe that? And so beliefs are self-limiting. And so if you see it and recognize that there is a limitation factor in the beliefs that you hold, but also know that beliefs are defining. It's how you define yourself. And so there's anchoring mantras that are given. One is given at the very end and the other is given a little bit earlier on. But you'll want to get that anchoring mantra, because if you release beliefs, then who are you? And so as you go through life, then you'll want to continually do it, because I find anytime someone says, well, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or that, I can't, I don't, whatever negativism, it's a belief. And so I find I do that. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I find that I do it from time to time, and I'll go, oh, there's another belief I need to release. And so it becomes kind of a game, and you make it fun. It's never meant to be taxing or problematic. It's always meant to be light and whimsical, and that you kind of engage the whimsy of the child.
On this podcast, I've had a couple guests on here, and we've talked about mindset. And it's interesting because I find our conversation that there is like a difference between the typical, like how to change your mindset and really embodying it. And I feel that's where like you come in and what you teach, what you share, what you've written about, what you speak about. Also, I was thinking about the belief, because I think that's what holds people back, right? Is because their mindset or their belief system just is like completely opposite of what they want to believe, right? If maybe it's like, I can't do that, instead of why I can do that because I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe you can come up with an example.
Well, and I understand what you're saying, because I think it's simply that we're in mind games most of the time. And the mind, the elders say to think of the mind as a computer. And so the computer was never programmed with spirituality. And in fact, when you want to sit down and do a meditation, the mind will say, oh my gosh, you don't have time for this. You need to go do those 10 things on your checklist, or you need to do those 15, or what about the errands you were going to run? You said you were going to do that, or were you going to take your child out to go do this or that? And so the mind will always distract you. the mind will always move you away because it's this stupid, silly little thing. It doesn't matter at all. But what I want to share that I think is very important is that your purpose is the reason that you are in existence. And it is the most important thing that you can get about doing, because it will shift and move you in ways that I can't even describe. It's the most incredible thing. So recognize that the mind is never going to say, oh my gosh, that is such a good idea. Let's go sit and meditate. Kumbaya. it just doesn't work that way. It is meant to take you off course. And I think, because the elders shared, of the mind as the teenager who has no curfew. So recognize that maybe once in a while you need to slap the hand of the teenager and say, no further. This is where the limits are, because you are meant to be the mental custodian, the monitor of all the thoughts that you keep. And when things make you feel bad, when they feel judgmental or lessening of another person or yourself, recognize that you can choose a different thought. You can choose a thought that makes you feel happy, and you can then be more have the recognition of keeping the mind in balance. And the one thing that I do that I'll share, it's a little secret, but I love sharing it, is that when the mind gives you some really stern pronouncement, that you kind of get in that whimsical mode and you chuckle at it. And it's not to be a belly laugh, and it's not to be, going from one end to the other, but you're meant to just give it a slight chuckle. And what you'll find is the mind will be in such shock that you don't think that the serious thing that it's discussing is important enough for you to take it very seriously. And it will completely shut up for just a few minutes. And you'll go, oh my gosh, this is what mental silence sounds like. How cool. And so it's really kind of fun.
Oh my gosh. I love this, Robyn. This is so cool. This cool stuff you're sharing.
It's just fun. It's a fun way to live. And it's especially fun in the climate that we live in today. It seems like everybody feels a little oppressed. And so this is a way to shift that.
Yeah. And so I know you've said this before. Love is the key to everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, the elders have said it, so I mimic what they say.
This is true. So how do we stay in that feeling of that love is everything?
So when they talk about love, they don't talk about the physical love that often people speak of. They speak on universal love. And so universal love is a healing agent. It's a healing component. It's a healing elixir. It's something that you can, when you feel like there's nothing that you can do in a weather occurrence, in a situation where someone is sick or some issue occurs within your life, if you anchor within yourself its deeper definition, which we share in multiple books. The little book, Define Your Purpose, one chapter is on what that is. It's repeated in Awaken. But once you internalize the true meaning of love, then every time you want to put it out into the universe, and we suggest you put it out each morning, then when you put out that energy, it goes out, gathers more of its kind, and returns back to you by the law of attraction. But also when there's a weather occurrence, I had a tornado that I sat through one night, and they were saying on the news to put your helmet on, to get your helmets on and go in the basement and stay in the basement. I kind of chuckled and thought that was funny. And at 3:00 in the morning, I heard the tornado because it literally sounded like it was right outside my window. And it was it sounded like a freight train. It was very, very loud. And so I said, okay, the tornado's here. So I gathered up my laptop and my phone and went into the basement. And it was so loud. And I was in an area that was all concrete. It was so loud that I thought, what can I do? And so I put my hands up and I started pushing out universal love. And within a few minutes, probably about 10 or 12 minutes, the elders joined with that energy. And I could feel the ramping up of the energy that went out into that storm. And it had I don't remember, killed one, I know, maybe two people in its path coming to where I was. And I had someone that was working here at my home. I asked him if he would find out if anybody had died from it or what kind of property damage we had from it, because it was just unbelievably strong. And he came back a week later and said he couldn't find anybody who had been injured and no property damage that he had heard of with the occurrence. And so I know that universal love is something that we can use and utilize in our lives today that we've kind of lost sight of. And so I would recommend that whenever you have a situation that you don't know what you can do or you feel like you're helpless, know that there is something you can do and you can enlist that love.
Would you say that universal love is a prayer?
I would say that everything by the energy that you keep is a prayer, is a meditation, is contemplation. It's all the means of connection to that which is outside of you that you cannot see, that you're trying to enlist answers from and to. And so you can define it as ever, however you prefer, but it is that elixir, that beautiful energy that is meant for us to have that we've kind of lost sight of and kind of trivialized when we think of it in relation to just the emotional love.
And I'm pretty sure you and I have chatted about this before, but it just comes back to my mind again about how so many of us, myself included, pick up our phone first thing in the morning instead of anchoring ourselves for the day. And this universal love, this thought or prayer of universal love, and thinking that and feeling that first thing in the morning could totally change the whole trajectory of your day.
It does. I had a circumstance last week where I started mentally and I was thinking of all the things that I need to do leading up to the launch. And I never anchored until about midday when everything was going south. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I haven't anchored today. And so the elders, again, on the YouTube channel, you can get all the different steps. And there's actually even a sign-up sheet that you can subscribe to the channel on advancedenergetics.org, the website, and get all the steps that you need to start your meditational practice. And it's just an incredible thing because you want to anchor, you want to ground, you want to send out universal love, you want to express gratitude within the morning hours and before you go to bed at night. So what you're doing is you're putting out this energy, and the objective is then that energy gathers more of its kind before returning back to you. So what that means is that over time, you have better days. Like your days may not be where you want them to be right now, but when you continue with this methodology, then your days will incrementally improve and you'll remove the negative aspects because, quite frankly, you're not drawing them in because you've changed your mindset. Mm-hmm. Years ago, when I was in a regular job, I would start with the news. And I had a television set that was anchored, little television, but it was anchored in my bathroom so that when I was getting dressed for work, I could hear all the latest news of what was going on and what was happening. And so I understand habits, and I understand breaking habits and making new habits, more positive habits that have an impact. So I've revamped the way I've started and ended my day almost 360 because I see a difference in my life, and my life is totally different. I feel like I live more or less a magical life, and I'm just grateful for even the bad things that happen because I know that they're really good things that I just don't see yet.
I love that. Robyn, if there's if there's something else that you feel you would like to say or share about either one of the books that we didn't touch on?
I think they're a good read, and I would suggest I hate to limit it. I shouldn't, I was going to say to suggest to get the physical book over the ebook, but they have lots of advancements on the ebook. I just like holding a book in my hand and making notes in the book, and just maybe have a journal if you get an ebook, so that you can take notes on what your progress is. But know that these books will help you as far as when you enact the recommendations, as opposed to just reading them. The elders say, and they probably said it a lot more than I kept in, because it was said so many times that it's not, and I'm guilty of this, and I'm sure this is why they said it, is because I used to read books all the time, and I would just be so accomplished, and then I would put that book back on the shelf before I had enacted any of its steps. And so know that you won't get the steps by osmosis. You won't get them by putting putting the book under your pillow and hoping that it will absorb in. There is a need to do in this lifetime, and it's a need to do by enacting your free will. And so everything is an election. And if it's not the time for you to do these things, then it's not the time. But if you're ready for a metamorphosis, a transformational change, then these are the books for you.
Oh, I can't wait. So you gave us your website. Is there any other way that our listeners can connect with you?
So I've got all the social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. I'm not a very devout Twitter user. And YouTube is really the platform that we're really growing. And then I put out a blog post every week, and the elders put a video that I join with the blog post. And those you can get when you subscribe to the website. So, there's lots of ways. So it's just whatever you prefer.
And all that information will be in the show notes, so our listeners can go back and connect with you. And the books, the information on the books will be there as well. So on the podcast, I have 3 questions I ask all my guests. And you did give us kind of the answer to one of them, but we'll come back to that in a second. But my first question to you is, what is something you're passionate about that people might not know about you?
I'm passionate about being in nature. I love being in nature. And I seem to always somehow wind up living very close to a body of water. And I'm about a mile from a really big lake here in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And so I've done that. I lived in Colorado, and I was near a lake, and I didn't even know it. They were like across the street from me. And I became friends with a gal who's a big hiker. And we went there one day. It was 3 lakes right across the street. Who knew? Yeah. So it's something that I discovered about myself. So
this is just a curiosity question. Do you prefer one season over another?
There's beauty in each season. I love winter. I remember I lived in Montana for a time. I love Montana. It's such a beautiful state. And I remembered working at a location and hearing geese flying outside, and it was some brand new snow. And I remember running outside. I didn't have, when it's 0 there's no humidity, so it doesn't feel that cold. And I remember these people coming in with these mucklucks and big jackets and lots of fur. And I'm running outside, and my office used to get really hot. So I would be wearing springtime clothes in the winter, because the windows would make it just like I was in a greenhouse. And I ran outside and I watched the geese. I just have to say that was magical. We were right on the Yellowstone River. It was just amazingly beautiful. So I love just almost the purity of the snow, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I like a good snowstorm.
Yeah. It's just pretty. Yeah. But I love all seasons, really. But that seems magical to me.
So you did give us a definition of purpose earlier. So I'm going to ask, do you have an elaboration on what is purpose? Is there anything else you want to add to it?
Well, purpose is your reason for being, and it's the subtitle of the greater purpose. And it is why we're here, and we've lost connection to it. And all you need to do, really, is to sit in contemplation, still the mind, and to begin asking now, even though you don't feel like you may have the best path. Ask now, because what it does is it's your attention and your intention to bring that forward and to bring it out of a submerged state, because everything is with you. All the tools that you need are internally based, and it's just a matter of energetically aligning so that you can move what is hidden, let's say right now, into full awareness. And then you ask inwardly for confirmation. But and this is important, you need to ask not mentally to get a mental aha, because how often do you look for confirmation of what you believe, but do you qualify and make sure that you're aligning with your heart space first before you ask for a confirmation? Because often we get a mental confirmation, but a mental confirmation will not get you there. You need a heart-spaced one.
That's good to know.
There's so much to know. It's hard to cover it all in a short period of time.
I know. But yes, I think a lot of times, well, we said it before, we're so in our mind that we don't connect to our heart, but we have to do that too. And my last question to you is there a possibility, a dream or a vision you have that hasn't come to fruition yet?
I'm in my dream right now. And I think to make it full circle and to make it larger than life is to make this objective larger than life, and to be able to connect with as many people as possible, because I believe the elders are a lifeline, and I want to share that lifeline. And I'm grateful that I have that energetic key to be able to connect with them. But I would rather share it with many as opposed to just myself, because that's the joy of living for me right now.
That's beautiful. I know you're going to connect with so many people, Robyn. I can't wait to just kind of follow. I know you're on a journey. We're all on a journey, but I can't wait, because I know you have so many ideas and so many ways you want to share what you have learned and sharing your books. I just can't wait to see where this goes.
I know, it's like a little journey mystery.
Yeah.
But, realize it's with everyone. Everyone's on their own personal journey.
Right.
And if we can assist in any way, that's what we're here for. That's my objective.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I'm so grateful to have met you.
I as well.
Thank you so much.
You are a gem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed the show, please submit a rating and review and share with a friend. This helps us reach more listeners so we can make a bigger impact. From time to time, we share our reviews live on our episode. Your review could be the next one we share. Please head on over to our website, passionpurposeandpossibilities.co, to receive a free gift I have waiting for you. And if you heard something today that truly inspired you, I would love to hear about it. You can email me at Candice Snyder at passionpurposeandpossibilities.co. Thank you again for listening.